Okay, so good morning, everyone. So today's topic is uh, new radio synchronization procedure. This is part 4 of our 5G air interface. Three sessions I had taken. In addition to my sessions, one session by C dot and a few session by TEC was also taken. So this is my fourth session on 5G air interface, focusing mainly on synchronization procedure. So, okay. So, what are the topic which I will try to cover today are ARFCN, that is Absolute Radio Frequency Channel Number, and Global Synchronization Channel Number, GSCN. Those are required to explain you the synchronization process, and then we'll talk about the cell process and the synchronization process itself. Then the concept of SS block, synchronization signal block, that is PSS and SSS, primary synchronization signal and secondary synchronization signal. And then we will look into how we can locate, or how a user equipment can locate the SS block, synchronization signal block, in frequency domain. And then we will look at how SS block can be located in the time domain, which symbol, which frame or subframe those SS block would be available, because for user equipment initially it is kind of a blind, it has to search and find these SS block in frequency domain and also in time domain. So we'll talk about that, what are the standards following which the user equipment is able to locate SS block and synchronize itself, and then how user equipment calculate the physical cell ID, because knowledge of physical cell ID, which is also called PCI, is important for synchronization. And then the concept of SS burst, synchronization signal burst, and then burst set, SS burst set, we'll talk about. And finally we will look at synchronization flow again, so that we recap the entire steps. So the this slide is blank all because I just wanted to discuss that what exactly we are trying to do when we say that synchronization procedure, then what exactly we want to do. So let us first understand that, and then perhaps it will be a good idea to let me connect my pen tab. Give me a moment. Yeah, yeah, thank you. So our aim is that the user equipment, which is kind of blank initially, it and it even do not know the on which frequency the system is working. So it has to synchronize with the G node B or the base station in respect of the frequency, and also in respect of the time, because you are aware that the frame, subframe, slot, and symbol. So those are very time sensitive items, and unless it synchronizes itself to that timing, it may not be able to transmit the information and also receive the information, right? So what are the way UV can actually uh, 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 try to gather the frequency where these signals are being transmitted by G node B. So if you look at the concept, so when you switch on your mobile, actually your mobile searches certain frequencies and try to locate some signal which is coming to it, right? So that process, it's not random frequency which it searches. Those are the defined frequency kind of a steps on which this UV has to perform. So let us first understand the concept. What are those steps? In which step it actually has to search the frequency one by one. So there's a concept of ARFCN and GSSCN. So ARFCN is absolute radio frequency channel number. So this is a number and every number will correspond to a specific frequency. And GSCN is the global synchronization channel number. So for synchronization purpose in 5G and of course also in 4G, this global synchronization channel numbers are used, right? But the synchronization raster concept came in 5G. So earlier they used to search on ARFCN. So this particular table which you are able to see, this table is of absolute radio frequency channel number which was used in GSM, the 2G communication. So just look at this particular numbers. So for every band, so GSM was operated in GSM 450, that is 450 megahertz band, or 750, 850. So there were various frequency band 900, GSM 900 band. So for every band, there will be a set of channel numbers. For example, if you look at this one, so channel number 1 to channel number 124 will be here, right? And if you look at GSM 450, channel number 259 to channel number 293 will be here. So how to calculate the uplink frequency and downlink frequency when ARFCN is known? So let us take this example. Suppose your ARFCN is 259. So this is the formula you can calculate the uplink frequency, which is 450.6 plus 0.2 in bracket n minus 256. Here n is this number, ARFCN number. So I said 259. So here 259 minus 259 becomes 0, multiplied by 0.2 also becomes 0. So that means this is the uplink frequency. So in my example, uplink frequency is 450.6 megahertz. And what is the downlink frequency? Downlink frequency is just uplink frequency plus 10. So uplink frequency will become 460.6 megahertz, right? So for each ARFCN in this table, you can calculate uplink frequency and also downlink frequency. So let us take one more example so that it becomes clear to you. Suppose again we take example of GSM 450 and let us assume that the ARFCN is 270. ARFCN is 270, that is N. So can some of you calculate this? So what it becomes? It becomes 450.6. See this formula, this one, plus 0.2. Just calculate, plus 0.2. My pen tab is troubling me. 0.2 and then multiplied by n. N we have taken 270 minus 259. Can somebody calculate and just write in chat box? I'm not going to calculate, just calculate. So this way you can calculate. If ARFCN is given, you can calculate the absolute frequency of uplink and also downlink. So I'm not getting anything on the chat box. Can somebody do it for me? Yeah, somebody has calculated 452.8 megahertz, that is uplink, and you can by adding 10 you can calculate the uplink frequency. So in case of a GSM, when your mobile is switched on, so it tunes to this frequency. So how they tune is like they go step by step. If your device is supporting suppose GSM 450, then it will start with ARFCN 259 and it will see whether there is some signal on that particular frequency. Then it will go to 260, 270, it will go up to 293 till it gets some signal which is coming. So that is the first step where the your device will tune to a particular frequency. And this happens in a scenario when you are switching on your mobile for the first time. In case you have already used your mobile for some number of times, uh, these frequencies which network is actually radiating, those are stored in the memory of mobile, right? So next time it doesn't need to actually scan entire frequency. It first searches in the stored list. Whatever list is stored inside the mobile, it tunes to those frequency first. Only in case it is not able to tune to the frequency in spite of searching on those stored lists, then it I will resort to scanning the entire frequency one by one. That you might have, some of you might have experienced that sometime our mobile takes very long time to scan the frequency and then latch to a particular network, particularly in the roaming. When you go for a roaming, since the frequency and other aspect, whatever is the stored list doesn't work, so it starts searching again the entire band, and finally you are able to uh, use your mobile phone. Okay, this was about, yeah. No, it's okay. It's going on. It says that. Let me see. Let me see. It's going on. It's for me. It is recording is going on. So no worry. Okay. So now in 5G. So this was about 2G. Similarly, there is a concept in 3G and 4G which I am skipping straight away. I'm coming to the new radio or the 5G. In 5G, they have defined global ARFCN. So global frequencies for new radio. So when I say that, what I mean is the steps on which steps that global frequency are aligned. So for three, they have divided the entire frequency starting from 0 to 100 gigahertz. They have divided into three parts. Just see this. Just see here. This is the first one, which is from 0 to 3000 megahertz, that is 3 gigahertz. And the second one is from 3 gigahertz to uh, 24.25 gigahertz, and from 24.25 gigahertz to 100 gigahertz. So if you look at the first part up to 3 gigahertz, F global, the steps here shown is 5 kilohertz. So every 5 kilohertz you will have those frequencies from 0, and then you have to go step by step. And there is no frequency offset because it is in start. I'll tell you what does that mean. And there is no this number, this ARFCN offset, which is 0, and the total range will be from 0 to 5999, that is one, almost 6 lakh range. 0 to 5999, that means there will be these numbers, these total numbers will be about 6 lakh. So how, and similarly if you look at second one, sorry, this one, second one, which is 3 gigahertz to 24.25 gigahertz, here steps are 15 kilohertz. Just see, here steps are 15 kilohertz. So here the frequency offset is 3000, and then that means you have to add 3000. While I'll show you the calculation, then it will come clear. And your NR offset is 6 lakh, because up to 5 lakh 99,999 we have already covered in the first range. And similarly for the last one, which is 24 gigahertz to 100 gigahertz, the step size are 60 kilohertz. Step size are 60 kilohertz. You can see here step size are 60 kilohertz. And then here offset is 24250.08, and then NREF is this one. So let us calculate. So just see one example where I have given ARFCN as 3000, right? So, and let us calculate the frequency for NREF 3000. That means if ARFCN value is 3000, so that means it belongs to the first range, because first range goes up to 6 lakh. So how to calculate? The formula is that you have to take the offset frequency, which is 0 in our case. Just see, this is 0 in our case, plus 5 plus the F global, that is 5 into 3000 minus 0. 3000 is the NREF and minus the NREF offset, which is 0 in our case. So if you calculate this, it will come 15 megahertz. Now let us calculate it for 1 lakh. Suppose this number is 1 lakh, that is ARFCN is 1 lakh, then please calculate the frequency, absolute frequency for this. So here also what will happen? Your offset is 0, so 0 plus 5, 5 is your delta F. Just see the formula here, and then 1 lakh minus 0, because offset is also 0, so it comes to 500 megahertz. So this way, if ARFCN is given, you will be able to calculate the absolute frequency number. Similarly, if you want to calculate, say for 6 lakh itself, if your ARFCN value is 6 lakh, then how do you calculate? Here, when you calculate, you have to take delta F as 15, and then you have to take frequency reference offset as 3000. This one FRF offset is 3000, and then NREF minus NREF offset. NREF offset is 6 lakh, right? So this becomes 0. So you can calculate for it. So I would encourage you guys to, I mean, you can try and calculate for different ARFCN value, the absolute frequency number. Uh, so basically for your UV and all, so if ARFCN is told, if they are aware of, the UV calculates the absolute frequency on which they have to tune. So so these are global frequency raster. These steps are global frequency raster, but in 5G, uh, the raster is not 5 kilohertz here. Just see, 5 kilohertz, 15 kilohertz, or 60 kilohertz, but it is kind of in a step of 20 or in a step of 3 or 6, depending upon different band. So if you look at new radio band, which is called N1, N2, etc. So here if you see, the raster is 100 kilohertz, right? The raster is 100 kilohertz. As I told you that in case of frequencies up to 3 gigahertz, the global raster is 5 kilohertz. That means, so all AR FCN values will not be used. So there will be a step of 20. So that's why. So these steps of 20, right? So suppose your ARFCN value is 384,000, the first one. The next one will be 384020 in the step of 20, right? So for different band, these steps are defined. I mean, the raster is 100 kilohertz in NR. In some band it is 15, 30, etc. So for every band, the raster has been defined in the specification. The table number which you are seeing is from the specification, and accordingly you will have the step size, because if it belongs to, say, frequency up to 3 gigahertz where global raster was 5 kilohertz, so here it will be 20 step, right? And if it is the next one where raster was 15 kilohertz, so depending upon that, you will be able to calculate that what is the exact raster for 5G. So for FR1 and FR2, both has been defined in the specification. But in 5G, they brought out a concept of synchronization raster and their numbering. And why they went for a synchronization raster, all because if they are not doing the synchronization raster, what will happen? It will take very long time to synchronize, all because our 5G supports low band mid band, and also the millimeter wave. So bandwidth are larger. For example, in FR1, our bandwidth can be up to 100 megahertz. In FR2, our bandwidth can be up to 400 megahertz. Wherein in GSM, 3G and 3G was 5 megahertz, 4G was only 20 megahertz, right? So there, I mean, searching onto those steps are okay. But in 5G, if you go with those steps, 100 kilohertz, it will take very long time to actually uh, even tune a frequency, right? So your mobile will take very long time to synchronize. So they came out with a synchronization raster. So what does that mean? That the synchronization signal will be located on some specific frequencies and not on every ARFCN or those frequency raster. So it is a wider kind of a gap step size which our synchronization raster will have. So in 5G, those rasters have been defined. So when we say synchronization raster, what we mean is that the frequency position of synchronization signal block, right? That at which frequency that location is possible. So possible location of synchronizations, right? Possible locations of synchronizations are uh, onto the synchronization raster itself, right? Whatever is defined. So for all frequencies in 5G specification, for all frequency bands, the global raster has been defined. If user equipment is suppose supporting a particular frequency band, so it will search those steps defined for that frequency band, right? And for each synchronization number, like GSCN, we call it, there is a absolute reference frequency, the center frequency of synchronization signal block, which system or UV can calculate, right? And what is the subcarrier spacing of the synchronization block itself? Because in 5G we have a concept of subcarrier spacing, 15 kilohertz, 30 kilohertz, and so on. So those are also defined specifically for each band, that what will be the synchronization raster. Just I'll take a call, small call, and then start. हाँ, बिजी हूँ बच्चे. हाँ बोलो, जल्दी बोलो. सो अभी तो मैं बिजी हूँ, पहले नहीं बताया आपने. हाँ, कर लीजिए, कर लीजिए. ठीक. सॉरी. So the subcarrier spacing for synchronization block is also defined separately for each band. So what are those GSCN? So GSCN is same global synchronization channel numbers. So so here they have defined how those specific frequency can be calculated with the GSCN number, and GSCN number for uh, 0 to 3 gigahertz, it is ranging from just see 2 from 7498, and then from 3 gigahertz to 24 gigahertz, these numbers are from 7499 to uh, 22,255, and for millimeter waves it is going up to this one. So here if you see what is the size of raster, let me take the second and third one, that is this frequency range. So here actually the size or the step size is 1.44 megahertz. Just see this, it is 1.44 megahertz. So if you calculate absolute frequency, that will be 3000 megahertz plus 1.44 megahertz. So that is 3000 1.44 megahertz will be the first synchronization raster reference frequency equivalent to the number 7499. Next will be, again you have to add 1.44 megahertz, that will be your 7500 GSCN number 7500. So that way you can calculate. You can use either the formula or you can one by one calculate, right? I'll share with you an Excel sheet which I have created to calculate, so you can just go through. Similarly, for the millimeter wave, the step size is 17.28 megahertz. So instead of those global raster of 5 kilohertz or NR frequency raster of 100 kilohertz, here the raster is, for second band it is 1.44 megahertz, and for the last millimeter band it is 17.28 megahertz. So that those synchronization signals will be placed in these steps only. At any of these points it can be kept. So this is the concept of global synchronization channel number and the reference frequency corresponding to each GSCN. Okay, so let me take few questions which is there onto the chat box and then discuss. So there is one question in the chat box, is that 3000 is in the both the range of frequencies. So which row is to be taken for 3000? Similarly for 2524250. So basically you have to look at the, if you are talking about say GSCN, so just look at the GSCN number and then calculate the absolute frequency. If you calculate absolute frequency for 7498, which is in the first range, it will be just slightly less than 3 gigahertz, right? And if you calculate it for 7499, you see that we are adding 3000 megahertz. Just see in the formula, we are adding 3000 megahertz 1.44. So in fact, it is slightly above 3000. So although the range written on the left side overlaps, but the actual frequency in the first row will be slightly less than 3000. In the second frequency, it will be slightly more than 3000. But in the specification, ranges are written like this. You have to look at the GSCN number or ARFCN number and calculate, and you will know the exact frequency. Is that answered, Rachna ji? Okay. Any more question from any of you? So when I say channel frequency raster, those step size, I'm talking about those step size, right? Step size of those frequencies. So that is called, I mean, frequency raster. And the channel number, when I say, that is the number, either ARFCN number or GSCN number. In terms of number, when it presented, it is channel number, they call it, either absolute radio frequency channel number or global synchronization channel number. When we say raster, either it is for the frequency raster or synchronization raster. Is that okay? I mean, come again. Right. Yes. So right. So, I mean, so now what? I mean, 3GPP in 2G and all, no, those numbers, those ARFCN numbers, was different for different things, right? And that was very complicated. In 5G, they have released a global raster, which is a number. Every 5 kilohertz, they have put the number. Now, in every frequency band, they are defining the step size. Otherwise, I mean, they were required to have a different ARFCN ranges for different, because in 5G you have different frequency ranges. Now, the requirement of different step size would be there depending upon the frequencies used. So first they have defined the ARFCN, and onto those ARFCN itself, even the GSCN is also one ARFCN kind of. So for normal frequency, they have defined step size, that is 100 kilohertz in some case, and in other cases it may be different, which I shown you. For every block they have defined. So the purpose is that what is the step size. So now those global frequency raster, they have made some kind of standard which can be referred always, and those are not changing, whereas the step size is changing, GSCN step size is changing again and again. So those will again refer back to a absolute ARFCN value. Whenever you mention a GSCN, it will correspond to one ARFCN value, global ARFCN value also. Is that clear to some extent? Okay. There is one question from Sandeep sir. Yeah, please go ahead. Can you take this call? I'm sorry. Let me take this call. Sorry. हाँ, मैं उसमें ले लीजिए, वो ड्रॉअर में देखिए प्लीज। हम्म, हाँ हाँ मिलेगा। हम्म, ठीक है। ओके ओके, मैं क्लास में हूँ, राइट? ओके राइट। सॉरी। ओके सो yeah, please go ahead. So here they have defined. Yeah, yeah. So in the first range, I'll show you. I think now there's a need to show that Excel sheet to you. So in the first range, the step size. I mean, these are existing band up to 3 gigahertz. If you recall, these are all being used by 2G, 3G, and the bandwidth available is less. So here a step size is uh, 100 kilohertz and 1000 kilohertz, right? So I'll just show you how it comes out, where M is 135, which gets repeated 135, 135, or N is from 1 to 2499. For every frequency band, those N values are also defined. So let me show you that Excel sheet so that it becomes clear to you. Give me a moment, I'll open an Excel sheet to make you clear. Okay, so can you see this table? Is it visible to all of you? Or shall I make it bigger? Okay, so just see. So here I have implemented that formula. So M was in the formula was M was one, either one or three or five, and this example is for N2 band, which is from 1930 to 1990 megahertz. It's only 60 megahertz total band, and GSCN formula given was 3n plus m minus 3 by 2, right? And the GSCN number itself defined as 4829, starting from 4829. It goes, there are total 140 such GSCN number for this band. So if you calculate, if you use this formula, so GSCN is known, M is known, so you can calculate the value of N. So are you getting me? So with this formula, when GSCN is known, your M is also known, you can calculate this N. So here if we calculate N, it is coming to, just see, 1610. When I am putting M as 1, when I am putting M as 3, M as 5, then also it is coming, this value is coming 1610, 1610 and 1610. And then there was a formula given of the reference frequency itself. synchronization reference frequency itself. I'm sorry, there is some issue at home. Let me take this call. Hello, hello. मेरा मेरे पास है. हाँ. ओके ओके, डन डन. ठीक. हाँ हाँ, इस पे मतलब. ठीक है ठीक है. ठीक ठीक, ओके ओके. गिव मी अ मोमेंट प्लीज, सॉरी. Okay, so with this formula, reference frequency when you calculate, so it comes 1932.050 megahertz, right? Then next you can calculate, next one you can calculate. When you go to the next one, that is 4832 GSCN number here. So this N is coming as 1611 with the formula, and M again I am putting 1, then 3, then 5, and then when you're calculating this, so if you just see the step size, just subtract from this reference frequency to the upper one, it comes to 100 kilohertz. So 100 kilohertz, 100 kilohertz, and then it comes 1000 kilohertz, that is 1 megahertz. So 100 kilohertz, 100 kilohertz, 1 megahertz. So the step size in the first frequency range is 100 kilohertz, 100 kilohertz, 1000 kilohertz, 100 kilohertz, 100 kilohertz, 1000 kilohertz, right? In the second frequency range from 3 kilohertz to 24 gigahertz, that was 1.44 megahertz in each case. In the millimeter wave, the step size was 17.28 megahertz. So I hope I was able to make it clear to you. So M uh, so basically, M is a number kind of, right, and that will kind of depend upon the subcarrier spacing, right? Yeah, that is for different subcarrier spacing. So as I said that SS block, pardon. So I think I'll give you this particular document you can go through. I mean, for time being, let us understand this as a just an. I mean, the overall concept, if you have to understand that GSCN step size in case of first frequency band is 100 kilohertz and 1000 kilohertz. In second one it is 1.44 megahertz. In the third one it is 17.28 megahertz. You can refer to this particular document if you want to go into much detail, right? Okay, now let's look at this particular slide. So the synchronization signal block, right? Uh, as we said in 5G, that it may be located on any of this frequency, that is the synchronization raster frequency or FREF frequency. Whereas in 4G, it used to be always in the center of the frequency. So it was very, very easy in 4G LTE that your synchronization signal is always in the center of the frequency. Whereas in 5G, it is not on the center, it can be located at multiple locations. For example, in N2 band, which I discussed, there were 140 probable location where this synchronization signal can be located. So, can somebody from your side answer that how, I mean, so why in 5G these SSBs are located at multiple location instead of being at center frequency? Any broad answer, any of you? Okay, so the answer to this question is in 5G one, we have a very, very large frequency band, and we have also concept of the BWP bandwidth part. That means not all devices or the user equipment are required to support the entire frequency band. So they will be supporting a smaller chunk of frequency also. So if it is in the center, how they will synchronize, right? Those frequency they may not support, right? So that's why in 5G, and it has become more kind of a flexible, right? In that sense. So SSB can be located on any of these search raster. So synchronization search raster, right? Now let us look at how actually then synchronization is done. So these are the steps, right? These are the four steps. When I say synchronization, basically I'm only talking about a user equipment device to synchronize itself in time and frequency onto the downlink direction, right? Onto the downlink direction. Uplink is the next process after this, right? So the first thing which it does is the frequency tuning. And what is that frequency tuning? Searching onto that synchronization raster one by one. Depending upon the which band user equipment is supporting, it will search those synchronization raster frequency which your user equipment is already programmed for or aware of, right? So that is your frequency tuning. So your user equipment tunes to a specific frequency, and then after that it has to, now on that particular frequency you have synchronization signal. And synchronization signal, I mean, they call it primary synchronization signal and secondary synchronization, and we'll talk about that what it is. So it detects PSS and SSS. So PSS, SSS, once user equipment is able to detect, right? In fact, it can calculate now the cell ID, the specific cell ID, that G node B cell ID, which it will try to latch on, right? So it now has the cell ID and some other information, and within the synchronization signal block. So PSS, SSS, you also have a broadcast channel, physical broadcast channel PBCH, which will also give you certain information required for this synchronization, which we will talk about. So as of now, you just understand it is a physical broadcast channel which your user equipment will decode, and it will get some more information about the system, and later on with these three it can further detect the remaining system information. RMSI is remaining system information, and also other system information which able to decode, and that it will get the information about how it can do later on onto the uplink synchronization. So up till now, these four steps. So basically what is happening is the synchronization in the downlink direction, right? So let us understand and go these aspects one by one so that it becomes clear to all of you, right? So once this PBCS is there, no, so then your system or UE is able to decode the control channel, downlink control channel, and also the shared data channel where data traffic actually uh, flows, that PDSCH, physical downlink shared channel. When I say shared channel, the actual data takes place on the shared channel where it gets those RMSI and OSI which I talked about. Okay, so frequency tuning, we actually understood that UV scans the frequency band on the sync raster, and then sync raster, I shown the table that where it is defined, and then, and not every time this is done, because if you are kind of syncing tuning for the second time, then you already have those frequencies in your memory. So the second time, third time, you in fact directly search onto the frequencies which you had used earlier, the device had used earlier. So it looks at that frequency, so tuning becomes faster. Otherwise, it does the tuning onto the raster, right? The next point is the sync raster and subcarrier spacing of synchronization block are defined separately for each band. So that means the subcarrier spacing is actually known to the user equipment. It's already configured or programmed for that, right? So that is the first frequency tuning part. The second is that PSS and SSS decode, right? So UV will decode that PSS and SSS, primary synchronization signal and secondary synchronization signal. What are these? I mean, so can some of you, okay, somebody has asked me SSB sweeping. I'll be talking about that, right? So what is those PSS and SSS? So as of now, the user equipment is not aware about, I mean, it will not know that what kind of modulation and what kind of packet it will be coming. So those PSS, SSS are nothing but a certain sequence of the number which is already known to the user equipment, right? So SSS, there can be uh, various sequence, right? And PSS can have various sequences, and those sequences are already available to the user equipment. So it just compares the pattern which it has received and the pattern which it is have stored. And with that, it will drive a particular number. And based on those numbers, it will be able to calculate the cell ID. So based on PSS and SSS, that sequence which it is receiving, it will be able to calculate the cell ID. We will do that calculation for you. And then, so basically with that sequence, your user equipment will be able to know the first symbol of a frame. So as we are aware that our frame size is 10 millisecond in 5G, every 10 millisecond a new frame gets transmitted. So the first symbol of a frame, so in terms of timing, it will know that when a frame is starting. So it is able to synchronize up to a level of a frame. And the SSS, the secondary synchronization signal, it will come to know the first symbol of a subframe, because your frame will be having certain number of subframe of 1 millisecond, 10 subframe of 1 millisecond, and every subframe will have certain number of slots, either a single slot for numerology 0 or for 30 kilohertz 2 slots. In every slot we will have a 14 symbols. So the SSS will give you the first symbol of a subframe. That means the first slot, right? And in first slot, the first symbol. So the timing. So it will able to now kind of the frequency synchronization happened with those raster, right? It was able to decode some signal is coming and it was able to decode it. And with PSS and SSS, it is able to kind of time synchronize the first symbol of a frame and first symbol of a subframe. So it is able to synchronize in frequency and time. So once it has synchronized in frequency and time, it will be able to go for the next step, where now it can decode the broadcast channel and then further decode remaining system information and other system information. So basically, in a flow, if you look at, just see, in a flow, if you look at, so when a user equipment is powered on, right? So it scans the frequency. Just a moment. Let me take pointer. Okay. So just see here, user equipment, when it is powered on, it searches the frequency and it knows that on which particular frequency the synchronization signal is being transmitted. So it will now be able to decode PSS and SSS, and with PSS and SSS it will calculate the physical cell ID. So basically up to this step, frequency and time synchronization is happening. And after that, it will decode the PBCH, that is the physical broadcast channel. DMRS is demodulation reference signal. Just understand. And then within the PBCH, it has got master information block, which will consist of so many parameters for subsequent action. For example, some of the parameters would be that the next system information, SIB we call it, what is the subcarrier spacing used in the SIB, the upcoming SIBs, and then where it can locate the physical download control channel, right? And then it will also know that whether on the cell which is trying to latch, whether it is barred or it is not barred, right? So barring is used for some other purpose which we'll discuss in subsequent classes. So this is the way it is able to decode the PBCH, right? Once it is able to decode PBCH, then it decodes the control channels, right? Control channels, and with these control channels, it will be able to decode the shared channel. Onto the downlink side, it will receive certain data from the G node B, which will give it the PLMN ID. That is, so here up to this step, you are not knowing which operator you are latching on, right? So once your mobile sees that the PLMN ID which it has received, whether it belongs to the same operator or not, right? So if it belongs to the same operator, then I mean it will select that cell, the PCI which it had calculated, and then after that it will start the process of synchronization in the uplink direction, which is called RAS process, random access channel procedure, which we'll talk later. So these are various steps. Otherwise, if suppose it finds that the PLMN ID is not belonging to the operator which this sim belongs to, so it will start the process afresh again. It will try to search the subsequent synchronization frequencies and try to search a frequency where the same operator. So it takes, I mean, a couple of seconds to do this if it is happening for the first time. I think I talked about in the previous slide about the control channel, and I talked about the DMRS channel. So just look at this particular, this is just a grid. If you recall the grid wherein we had frequencies. So in this direction, you have frequency, say subcarrier 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever number of subcarrier you may have 3000 subcarrier or 4000 subcarrier. And onto the downside, you have symbols. So in one slot, you have 14 symbols, right? 0, 1 to 13, right? So if you just look at this particular diagram, the first three symbols 0, 1 and 2 is normally control channel. Then you have demodulation reference signal. This is used to demodulate the traffic channel correctly. And the blue one are the actual. These are used for actual traffic, and again DMRS. I talked about these, so I thought that it will be a good idea to show you that where those control channels or DMRS signals or the shared channels are located onto the grid, just for your reference. Okay, so now come back to our channel. So now let us discuss the synchronization signal block itself, what it is, what it contains. Just look at this diagram. I hope this picture is visible to all of you. Okay, so we will talk about how much frequency resources are required for this SS block and how much time resources are required. So in terms of frequency, if you see here, it is subcarrier which is starting from 0, it going up to 239. So I require 240 subcarrier. Yes, just remember, you require 240 subcarriers to transmit the synchronization signal block 240 carrier. Can some of you calculate how many resource block will be? So 12 subcarrier is one resource block. So if you divide this by 12, can somebody write in the chat box? Yeah, 20. So you require 20 resource block in frequency domain for your SS block. And in time domain, you require 4 symbols. How many symbols you require? 4 symbols. Symbol, it is mentioned as 0, 1, 2, 3. This is not the actual symbol number, but it is just a count that 4 symbols are required. Where it is placed, we'll be talking about later. Now on to this, you have to locate PSS, SSS, PBCS. Three things. In the SS block contains what? PSS, SSS and PBCH. PBCS is physical broadcast channel. So the SSS, if you just see the PSS first, primary synchronization signal. So if you are starting from subcarrier 0 and going up to 240, normally it will not start at 0. It can start at a particular number, at particular raster. If you recall, it will not be always 0. But for the purpose of giving you how much wide it is 240 subcarrier. And then if you calculate from 56 to 182, how many subcarriers? Can somebody tell me? From 56 to 182, your PSS is there. So how many subcarriers? Can somebody tell me that from 182 minus 56, right? Actually 56 included. So it will be 127 carriers, right? So your PSS and SSS also, just see, will require 127 subcarriers. Please remember, right? And your PBCH is spread here in the symbol 4. The entire 240 subcarrier will contain PBCH. In symbol 2, the balance of SSS will contain your PBCH. There is some gap also. How much is the gap? From 182 to 192. This is the gap. And here from 47 to 56, there is a gap. So you have PBCH here, PBCH. So there are three symbols where PBCS is there. Symbol 1, symbol 2 and symbol 3. Right? And all those locations, this one is actually set to 0. No other information. It is kind of filled 0. You can see here. This gray are kind of a 0. So wherever nothing is shown, in the sense that blank are shown, those are nothing but 0. So this is your kind of a physical structure in frequency and time domain for that your SS block in 5G, right? It is different from 4G all because there you had PSS and SSS only, whereas here the broadcast channel is also part of SS block in 5G. That's the difference from 4G. So it's 12, it's already 1 hour. I'll take 30 minutes more to complete this. Okay. As I said earlier that what is the numerology of these SS block? So those are predefined because your UV will not be able to get any information from outside, right? Because it is kind of a blind at the time of initial synchronization. So those are predefined that for so for every, so FR1, suppose you have FR1. So in FR1, our numerology is 15 kilohertz. Just see, 15 kilohertz when I am using the frequency as FR1. When my FR1 more than 3 gigahertz, it is 30 kilohertz. FR2, it is 120 kilohertz and also 240 kilohertz. Both are used. I have to take this call also, sorry. हाँ जी. Okay. Yeah, sorry. So these numerologies are predefined for different frequency band, and according to numerology, your bandwidth will be decided. So how do you calculate the bandwidth? So bandwidth, for calculation of bandwidth, you know that you require 240 subcarriers into, if it is 15 kilohertz, then you have to multiply this by 15. So you get 3.6 megahertz. If it is 30 kilohertz, then you have to multiply by 30 and so on. So you can get the SSB bandwidth. And duration will depend upon what? Duration will depend upon again the numerology, because you have four symbols, right? Four symbols, right? So in case you have 15 kilohertz subcarrier spacing, then what happens? In 15, your one slot is 1 millisecond, and one slot has got 14 symbols. So for four symbols, you can calculate the duration. So your SSP duration also depends upon the numerology. So this is the concept, the table taken from the specification itself. Okay. And those PSS and SSS, I said those are sequences. Those are already known that those are modulated with BPSK, binary fetch shift keying. Your device already knows. So it need not any other information that what modulation will be used. It is already pre-programmed, and and these are standard sequences, right? Both SSS and PSS are standard sequences which your user equipment knows, and it will able to compare and derive those information, uh, right? And these PSS and SSS, you can calculate the cell ID, and there will be total of 1008 physical cell IDs in 5G, which gets calculated using the PSS and SSS. Okay, so just to repeat and make you clear, this is the same diagram where I have 240 subcarriers for a SS synchronization signal block, 127 subcarrier. Uh, the PSS and SSS takes 127 subcarriers. Your PBCH in symbol 2 takes 48 subcarriers upper side and 48 subcarriers on the lower side. You can see the diagram. And onto the right side, all 240 subcarriers are taken by PBCH. So, and then as I explained initially that with PSS and SSS decode, so with PSS, system will know the first symbol in a radio frame. The system will know first symbol in the radio frame, this one, and then it will also know a value called N2, which will be used to calculate the cell ID. Now, in case of a SSS, which is also 127 carrier, you will get first symbol in a subframe. So now you know the frame, you now know the subframe, and you also know when first symbol is starting. So you are able to synchronize the time. In addition, you will also come to know the N1 value. That sequence will also tell you the N1 value, right? Now let us see the same diagram horizontally to make you clear that horizontally you have frequency now. So it's a 240 subcarrier and 4 OFDM symbol and 127 for PSS and SSS, and from this place to this place it is 144 RBs, 48 subcarriers for this PBCH and this PBCH, and the end PBCH is all 240 subcarriers. Okay, now how to calculate the cell ID once you know those numbers? So just see this particular picture. So basically the SSS. When you decode SSS, you can get values from 0 up to 335. Those sequences, based on pattern, the system will know the value of SSS, which can be from 0 to 335. With PSS, from 0 to 335. From PSS, you can know only three value, either 0, 1 or 2. The PSS sequence, because PSS is decoded first, so only three patterns it has to match, and once it has already detected PSS, it becomes easy for the system to do the SSS part. So three values it calculates, and based on these two, it can calculate the cell ID. How it calculates? So this is your N1, this is your N2. So cell ID, that is physical cell ID, is N1 into 3 plus N2. You can take one example. Example given here is that suppose 303 is your N1, N1 is 303, and N2 is say 1. So what will be the PCI? It will be 303 into 3 plus 1. That means it will be 9. How much it will come? 909 plus 1, which is 910. Can somebody calculate the highest value? Suppose SSS is 335 and PSS is 3. Can somebody calculate and let me know what is the number it is coming? 3. Yeah. So 1008. Somebody, Deepika has replied 1008. So the maximum possible physical cell ID number is 1008 from 0 to 1008. So you got point that your physical cell ID can be up to 1008. So this way your system calculates the physical cell ID on which it will actually latch, right? So now this PBCH, the PBCH which you see here, the PBCH which you see here, this contains MIB, Master Information Block, right? And the PBCH will actually will be QPSK modulated, right? So PSS and SSS was BPSK modulated. Your MIB is QPSK modulated, right? And so whatever information you gather from it, right, that will give you some heads on for other system information like SIB1, system information block type 1, right? And this PBCH, these informations are actually transmitted every 80 millisecond, right? So it's a repetitive transmissions. One, you have decoded PSS and SSS. So every 80 millisecond you can decode this PBCH. So so it will be able to decode the next set of information to latch it, right? Now just see this particular information, that how UV utilizes the minimum system information uh, in which it has got, right? So as we discussed that UV first decode PSS and SSS and gets a physical ID, and then UV scan for the MIB that is there in the PBCH, right? And there it gets that information, and then it decodes that MIB and gets information about other control resources, where those are located, what are their kind of a uh, subcarrier spacing, etc. And then it interacts with the system and it is able to kind of synchronize itself with the downlink thing, right? So now let us also up till now we have understand that where that SS block, how that SS block looks like in frequency and time domain, and on frequency how we are able to search using the global synchronization raster. But the next question is in time domain, although we know that it will contain four symbols, but where those four symbols will be located? Where those four symbols will be located? So you have to refer this particular table, that where that particular SS block will be located. So depending upon the subcarrier spacing, so we had discussed that we have 15 and 30 kilohertz subcarrier spacing, and we have in FR1. In FR2 we have 120 and 240 kilohertz subcarrier spacing. In sub 3 gigahertz we have 15 kilohertz, 3 to 6 gigahertz we have 30, and in FR2, that is millimeter wave, we have 120 and 240, right? So the formula given is this. This is also taken from the specification. For less than 3 gigahertz, location of your SS block will be, starting point will be symbol number 2, symbol number 8 in slot 0, and in slot 1 again symbol 2 and symbol 8 of slot 1. And if you have a continuous calculation, you can do it by multiplying by 14 into n, right? N is either 0 or 1. Any doubt on this? I'll show you the picture and then come back. Just see what I was talking, that suppose you have, in case of a 15 kilohertz, as you are aware that our slot size is 1 millisecond. Slot size is 1 millisecond, and within slot I have 14 symbol 0, 1 up to 13. So I have uh, 14 symbols in total. So I'm saying that second symbol, my SS block will start from here, 0, 1, 2. So this is my SS block. And what is the size of, where I mean SS block in terms of time? It is 4 symbol. So 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So this one. So the SS block is starting at 2. The next is starting at symbol 8. Just see. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is the 8th one. Again 4 symbols. So this is your second SS block. And it will kind of repeat after some interval. So your SS block in time domain, in case it is 15 kilohertz, are kind of a repeated. So just see. So how many total SS block will be there? Can somebody tell me here? Because you have 2 in slot 0, then slot 1 also you have 2. So total how many SS blocks? Can somebody tell me? How many SS block in 15 kilohertz subcarrier spacing, frequency less than 3 gigahertz? Yeah, please go ahead. I think everyone is blank. If you are not able to understand, let me know. I'll explain it again. So 2 is there in slot 0 and 2 is there in slot 1 also. So how many total SS block for 15 kilohertz subcarrier spacing? 4, right? So just see the below table. So up to 3 gigahertz, you will have 4 SS block, right? So we call it burst. In a burst, there will be 4 such SS blocks. Now let's go to again more than 3 gigahertz. If frequency is more than 3 gigahertz, and we are still using 15 kilohertz. In that case, there will be how many SS blocks? So one SS block, two SS block in slot 0. So 2, and in slot 1 again 2, in slot 2 again 2, and slot 3 again 2. So how many total? 8. So 3 to 6 gigahertz, I have 8 SS block. Yes, you're right. So now I'll answer the question of Ravinder ji, that what is that beam sweeping and all, right? So these SS blocks are transmitted as beam in different direction. So suppose I have 4 beams. So the 4 beams will be transmitted in 4 direction periodically. So that is kind of a beam sweeping. One beam, second beam, third beam in different direction, right? And UV will try to receive a beam which is getting transmitted towards that UV, right? So this concept is beam sweeping. That there was a question earlier. So now you know that how many beams. So in case the 5G is supporting beam in a particular frequency band, so there will be multiple synchronization signal getting transmitted on different beams, so that all the UV in the area gets some or other beam, right? I'll show you some picture also. Now let's look at one more example of 120 kilohertz subcarrier spacing. So here you see how many SS blocks are there. Just see. So from slot 0, starting from slot 0 up to slot 18. And there are some slot where not there, like slot 4 is not here, slot 9 is not there. So these are defined ones. So there are actually 16 slots, right? And in every slot you have, these are the locations of SS block. So total will be 64. So there will be 64 number of synchronization signal block, and those will be transmitted in different beam. So it will be a kind of a beam sweeping, one beam in one direction, second beam in next direction, and so on. So 64 such beams will be there. So the system, your UV already knows that with these tables are already configured in the user equipment devices, that what is the subcarrier spacing and what is the start point of SS block symbol. So this is how they are able to, once they know the first symbol location in a subframe, they will be able to go to a particular symbol number where your SSB is present. So this example I had shown for first for 15 kilohertz. For 30 kilohertz, as I said, there will be 4 SS block, this, this, and so on. For all those configuration you can draw. Similarly here, this is your case B. When I say case B, just see these are the case B's. Case B, case C, case D. So we have drawn something, we have taken these diagrams. So here what you see here is a subframe 0, subframe 1, subframe 2, subframe 3, and subframe 4. And then in case of case B, frequency is between 3 to 6 gigahertz. You have 4 SS block, and where those are located, we had calculated those symbols. These locations are given here. These locations, right? And locations are symbol 4, 8, 16, 20. If you have numbering continuous, all symbols number, if you make it continuous, it will be like this. So these are location of your SS block in time domain. Similarly, for case C, which is frequency between 3 to 6 gigahertz, but SCS is 30 kilohertz. So these are the locations given. They are just plotted, you can go through. Okay, so up till now, any doubt on location of SS block? Anyone having doubt? Okay, so if there's no question, then the same SS, SSB beam sweeping and SS burst. Just see. Just see. So as I said that this is your G node B, and let us see that it will be transmitting the SSB. Those are synchronization signal block 1, 2, 3 and L. And L we have discussed depends upon the frequency itself, because less than 3 gigahertz I have 3, 3 to 6 gigahertz I have 4, and 3 to 6 I have 8, millimeter wave I have up to 64. That's the maximum number, not the compulsory, but that the maximum number those SS block would be possible, right? So, and as I said, within 5 millisecond, please uh, just understand this, that within 5 millisecond, all those 4 or 8 or 64 or less than that beams will be transmitted. So SB0, SB1 and SBL, these all will be transmitted in 5 millisecond. Please remember 5 millisecond is your half subframe, uh, half frame. 10 millisecond is your frame. So the in a half frame all the synchronization signal will be transmitted, right? So it will be 4 in case of less than 3 gigahertz, 8 in 3 to 6 gigahertz and 64 maximum number. This is the max number. It can be less than that but not more than that, right? So these are called SS burst set. So this either 4 or 8 or 64, whatever number it is, will be transmitted within 5 milliseconds, and those will be called SS burst. Please remember, these are called SS burst, right? And when it will be repeated, it will be repeated after 20 milliseconds. After 5 milliseconds, next set of SS blocks will come after 20 milliseconds. And here it is a difference. In 4G, every 5 milliseconds they will kind of transmit these uh, primary synchronization and secondary synchronization. So it's a kind of a always on transmission, right? In 5G, it is repeated after 20 milliseconds. So a lot of overhead are actually reduced. So any doubt onto this diagram? Any doubt onto this picture? Or shall I proceed? You can write no doubt or no or yes in the chat box. That gives me energy, right? If nobody is writing, I feel that people are going blank. Please write something in the chat box. Either you are able to understand or not able to understand. Okay, please proceed. At least someone found out. Okay, fine. Good. So, so that means the multiple beams are being transmitted, right? In different direction. Why different direction? Because as I said, if this is the tower, in all direction, one by one, different SB will be transmitted. Now, the user equipment, when when it tunes the frequency, it receives signal from multiple SSBs, right? So it receives so many signals, right? But it knows that it just measures the power. Now it knows that, okay, in this particular direction or this beam, it is getting good signal. Here also it may be getting good signal, right? So now the next time it will just try to latch onto this and try to decode PSS and SSS. Similarly, user equipment 2 may be getting SB4 as a good signal, and it will latch onto this particular synchronization block. So for every UE, it will receive multiple beams. Some some of the beams will be of good kind of receive level, some will be of poor, So if it is more than a threshold value, then it decides among them and selects among them that these are different SS blocks. So now it knows that when it is getting transmitted, the frequency it knows, and it also knows that every 20 millisecond those repeat transmission will happen. So it does that, right? Okay. So I think I have discussed different steps earlier, so I'll just skip. So again, same diagram in a different picture where in different direction your beams are getting transmitted. This direction, second beam in this direction, third beam in this direction, fourth beam in this direction. So your user equipment, I mean, sometime it will receive some signal of this beam, but it will not utilize because quality is poor. But next time the beam direction is kind of aligned to this particular user, so it will select this beam. So basically, it latches onto a correct beam and decodes that and uses that for subsequent purpose. And it happens for both uplink and downlink direction. Just to repeat, our SS bus set is 5 millisecond. Within 5 milliseconds, certain number of SS block are transmitted, and every 20 millisecond it is repeated. 20 millisecond is counted from here. Just remember, not counted from the last SS block, but counted from itself. Here itself. So this is your 20 millisecond. It is not counted from the SBL, right? Okay. So this is kind of a last uh, flow, just to repeat the process which we discussed so far, that how synchronization is happening. And as I said, it is just in downlink direction. Uplink is the next step, kind of, right? So just see this picture. So initially your G node B is transmitting those SS bus every 20 millisecond on certain frequency, right? And this will be received by your user equipment, right? And once it is received, the SS bus, it will determine which SS block it is going to latch on. And once it has kind of done that, so estimated that frequency, then it will decode your PSS and SSS, right? And with that, it will calculate the cell ID. So first it is calculating PSS, then it is calculating SSS, and then it is able to calculate the cell ID, right? And then within the SS block, you have PVCH, right? So PVCH, it will decode, it will get what is the DMRS, what is the MIB, minimum information block, and demodulation reference signal, right? So it gets so many informations, right, about it. So once this is done, the next step is the G node B will provide some resources, right? That is called RAS resources, random access resources, right? So up till now, whatever we had studied was up to this. Only this much we have studied previously today. And the next is, so up till now we have done only the synchronization in downlink direction. Now the next step is that how we are able to synchronize in uplink direction and then try to, I mean, have a both way connection. So in a very brief, I will explain this. This process is called random access process because uh, the UV will randomly try to connect to the G node B, right? So that is called RAS. So your G node B provides the RAS resources after uh, it is able to latch onto that download synchronization happens, right? And then we call it message 1. So your UV is sending some random preamble which is programmed in the user equipment, and those are common to all the UV, right? So there is a possibility that when one UV is doing this preamble transmission, random access, Other UV may also be sending the same random number, so there's a chances of collision, right? But there's no way you can avoid, because you don't have much information about the system at this stage. So that's why we call it random access. And if it is kind of colliding, then process starts again. Otherwise, you get a message 2 from the G node B, which is kind of a response, which is random access response, RAR we call it. Then I mean, so at this point of time, the UV gets certain information, and now it can request for a radio resource connection, right? Radio resource. Now it will request for the radio resources, so that is message 3, and G node B responds with the RRC connection, and then finally your message 5. I mean, once RRC connection message comes, it is acknowledged by the UV, and finally a connection is established. So this is your kind of synchronization in uplink direction. And now downlink and uplink synchronization already happened, and all those process of your PDU session, right, and other aspect will take place. So this is your synchronization process. So let me close the PPT and have a small discussion before we can close it for. So it was a bit complex, but I tried to make it simple. If you have any question or doubt or any discussion or any more requirement, please go ahead for 5, 10, 5, 6 minutes, and then we'll close it for today. I request everyone, you can open the video for some time. Yeah. So whether, I mean, as you had requested for this particular session, whether I was able to do some justice, or there is still doubt in it. Please open your mic, say about something about this session, whether. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's right, sir. So since we have a mixed kind of participants, so maybe I can request the participant from TRAI or DOT if they can comment. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you, Ravinder ji. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Ravinder ji. So, yeah, you're right. So in office you get other engagement also. Somebody calls and all. Even I got few calls from home and I had to attend because you cannot ignore call coming from. Yeah, okay. What about people from the C dot? Yeah, so you're right. So there are some resources on synchronization on onto internet. So what I have done, I have collated those resources and made a Word document which I'll be sharing. I don't know whether I have shared. I'll be sharing. So that has got some more detail. If you read the specifications, sometimes it is, I mean, it goes into much more detail. I'll share that document and in later time perhaps you can go. Yeah. So there are many such resources, although I have not created those pictures. I have taken from some or other resource available on internet itself. But you have to put in a sequence. We are able to kind of explain properly. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Rachna. Thanks a lot. Yeah, recordings. Rather, I have made it public, so it's not only for our class, but anybody can go through. And I see lot many interaction happening onto the YouTube also, where I have put all those resources. So more than 60, 70 hours of recorded sessions are already there. So the courses which I have yet to cover, those are already there from the previous session. And even the newer session I just upload. I keep recording while I speak and I just upload onto the YouTube. So it doesn't take me extra time except few more minutes to upload. So that becomes a resource for anyone who want to learn. Yeah, that's right. So I think let us close it for today and meet again on the next Tuesday. So thank you very much. Thanks a lot for joining.